Hey everyone, some exciting news to share. AREF Long is proud to be in partnership with Kev Talks for on-site coverage of TPM 2026. While Kev Talks will be sharing conversations from across global logistics, our team will be there to discuss customs compliance, tariffs, and risk management with importers and industry partners. If you're attending TPM this year, we invite you to come by and join in on the conversation. We hope to see you there.
Hey, KP, what's going on?
Hey, welcome back to another great episode, Kev Talks.
Yeah, once again, here we are.
Here we are. All right, Higgins. I'm sure you remembered, but last weekend was the weekend of love. It was Valentine's Day, all about unions, I will say, and we got a surprise a little bit in the industry of a union. Between HAPAG and Zim. I'd love to get your take on that, and what does that mean for the industry?
Dude, I was shocked but not shocked when I saw that, actually. And you know, I don't know what to think of it, because there's a part of me is like, Zim has been this carrier out there that has been going it alone, right? They've been making it happen for decades and decades. And now to, potentially become a part of, to join forces with Hapag-Lloyd, and then, what that means to the bigger picture with the Hapag-Maersk relationship. I don't know, man. I'm still kind of processing that. What do you think about
Well, it's really interesting that we're all going to be together, all of us as in the industry, just in a few weeks. We're on countdown mode for TPM. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I think that pretty good timing. More importantly, what I was going to ask you is, who's next? What's next? Does this start a consolidation? I've lived through a couple of those. You have as well. Does this start another consolidation that maybe we aren't thinking of in 2026?
It could. I think we could see some more. I wish I had a clear crystal ball to tell me who it was going to be, but I think we could see some more.
And what does that mean to the BCOs?
Yeah.
Is there an upside for the BCOs in this? Is that a whole other episode?
Yeah, that would be a long conversation. My initial thought is that it is, from a capacity perspective, I think that it allows certain people to do certain things and allows Hapag-Lloyd to do certain things. But what the BCOs, the way I would be looking at it if I was sitting in that chair, quite honestly, is I just lost a little bit of leverage, honestly, because I've got this independent carrier out here, and not that Hapag isn't, but they are in a partnership or a relationship, an alliance with Maersk, right? So, but I lost a little bit of leverage by having this independent carrier that I've used as leverage on the other stuff. And it's a little bit different today than it was when I was doing it and you were doing it, because we had all these conferences that we had to deal with, and you had independent, the conference, and TSA and ANER and things like that. So you wanted that leverage, but does that still ring true today? I don't know. But sitting where I am sitting today, that's the first thought that I would have, is like, I don't like this, because I like this little niche carrier that's doing this stuff for me, and I like this relationship, and now it's becoming part of a bigger one, which is part of a bigger alliance. And so I'd be looking real close at it. And if we continue to see this, I think it's good for the carriers, because they need the capital to continue to reinvest. But I don't know what it brings to the BCOs. Honestly, I don't know what it means to them.
Yeah, it'll really be interesting how it plays out the rest of this year. And I'm really anxious to get to TPM and talk to a couple of people and kind of get their take. And hopefully we can get them on record. It'll be good to ask this question across the week while we're there. So
I would love to know I would love to have Zim's side and Hapag's side and a BCO side. That would be amazing. Like, what was the value to Zim? What was the value to Hapag? And what's the value to a BCO? And have them independently, individually, not where they feel like they can't talk. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Well, I think that's an episode we'll have to try to cobble together. Our friend Stuart, we can have him back and talk a little bit about that at some point. Well, listen, also, that's upcoming in March. And then right after March, the month of April is really full. Specifically, I want to call out and mention, if you're looking at the newsletter, this is maybe a good time to promo the newsletter. If you're not signed up for that, you can. But I've been promoting the NWA, the Northwest Arkansas Supply Chain Trends and Expo, which is scheduled for April 22nd, and it's a really, really good event. A couple of years now. Keynote speaker Rob Montgomery, EVP of supply chain from Walmart. And then if you're familiar with, you may or may not, if you're not from Northwest Arkansas, Seven Brew Coffee Shop, really from Northwest Arkansas. So their supply chain officer and CEO are going to be speaking, and then a couple of other guests as well. But about 300 attendees, 50 plus corporations, some startups, lots of startups, and a little event with those. So a really, really good event that hopefully we'll both be at, and it's a real good event in Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah, and I think we haven't released the episode yet, but we talked about it. Another reason or another highlight to Northwest Arkansas is a supply chain hub, right? So we talked about that recently, and the value of what goes on in Northwest Arkansas. And when you can draw those kinds of people to an event like that, it's pretty freaking impressive, honestly.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. So premier event in Northwest Arkansas and supply chain hub that it is. Also, I have to mention, you and I met or learned of one of our former guests, Ryan Joyce from GenLogs. Ryan, we did not meet him specifically, but GenLogs was part of one of the past sessions. So you never know who you're going to learn about and who you're going to meet. So really, really good event. Looking forward to that one.
100%. And those guys just had some really incredible news as well. Just raised a huge round of funding. So I think over $60 million, right? In a round of funding, if my memory serves me right. So congratulations to Ryan and to the entire GenLogs team on that as well. And hopefully we'll get to catch up with those guys as well. But that does remind me, and I apologize for taking us off track on this, but I just got back from Manifest, and Ryan and his team were out there, and there was a line of people waiting to see Ryan. I didn't even get a chance to talk to him, but man, let me tell you something. What a conference. I haven't seen a ton of people, dude. So anyway, I'm not plugging the conference. I'm just telling you, it was amazing.
I'm glad you got to attend, and we'll probably be talking about that. And I suspect that we're going to get some guests that came out of that visit as well. So look for that in the future. But listen, okay, I mentioned Walmart before. SVP keynote speaker for that event, but our next guest is a former Walmart executive. I'll let you do the honors to kind of kick us off on this episode. This is a special one.
It is an incredibly special one, and I am so excited that we got this human being on the podcast. He retired a decade ago now, and is just an amazing human being. He did so much for me as a young leader, and really helped me kind of shape a lot of things, and gave me opportunities that I really didn't think that I deserved, and taught me so much. So I'm super excited to have on this Legend series to welcome Tim Yatsko on this episode. He is, if you don't know Tim, he's a seasoned transportation and supply chain executive, best known for leadership as Senior Vice President of Transportation for Walmart. He was Executive Vice President of global sourcing. He played a key role in transforming Walmart's private fleet into a data-driven, efficient, and sustainable operation, pioneering initiatives like trailer telematics integration and fuel efficiency programs that improved the overall performance while reducing the environmental impact.
Tim was a vocal advocate for sustainability and operational transparency. He had consistency, balanced technology, capital investment, and network efficiency to drive results in one of the world's most complex supply chains. He brings firsthand insight on leveraging private fleet as a strategic advantage, responding to disruptions, and embedding data and visibility into every transportation decision. On this episode, Tim shares lessons from his career, the evolution of logistics technology, and his perspective on sustainability as a core business strategy, making this a must listen for anyone looking to learn from one of the true innovators in modern logistics. Welcome, Tim. All right. Welcome back, everyone, to another great episode of Kev Talks. This is a real special treat.
This is a treat, man.
We've talked about before a couple of our guests that we have chased and finally talked into coming. And we didn't chase, but we were extra excited when Mr. Tim decided to join us. So Higgins and I both know Tim from our Walmart days and talk about a servant leader and a legend within the Walmart industry and supply chain. When we started talking about who all we could get, Tim was definitely on the list. So Tim, we're really excited to have you on Kev Talks today.
Glad to be here. I don't know about legend, but I sure worked with a lot of legends. I know that.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot. Like Kevin, KP, and I have talked about just how fortunate we were, the time frame in which we were all at Walmart. You know, the true legends that we got to work with, and not just at Walmart, but within the service provider industry as well. There's a lot of innovators in our service providers that we get to deal with, and so. But first of all, Tim, how the heck are you?
I'm doing fine.
You look great,
man.
Doing
fine. I'm busy. I'm still up early and working all day and serving here and there, mostly my family.
That's awesome.
I'm doing great.
That's awesome. Well, KP's in the new grandparent stage as well. I am not, but KP's got two.
I do. And I am absolutely obsessed with these human beings. And I tell people all the time, if I could be a grandparent first, that was, people tell you how great and wonderful it is, Tim. And they are not telling the full story. It is absolutely amazing. And I'm blessed that I get to see mine. They're in Northwest Arkansas, so I see them on a regular basis. I cannot imagine being hours and miles away. So it's a great time.
I got to tell you, I've got two grandsons now that are 18 years old already. So I'll be looking at great grandparenting before long, I'm sure.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. That is awesome. Well, listen, I want to start kind of way back, and we always talk to our guest about how did you get into transportation and logistics? So what drew you to transportation and logistics? And then the other secondary question that always has to go along with it, what made you stay in transportation and logistics, right?
Yeah, I think for me it was just my experience in the military. I became a logistics officer in the military by their choice, not mine. And being assigned to that, I got to work with some great people in the military. I just really enjoyed the support role. I enjoyed being behind the scenes, enjoyed the process work, and later, I heard of a perspective on skill sets for teams. Kevin Higgins, you probably remember me talking about this, or your trailblazer skills, your road builder skills, integration skills, and your implementation skills. And my wheelhouse was really the road builders type of skill set, I think, when I began as a leader. So loved building roads, loved delivering for the operators, if you will, and that just carried over into Walmart.
So how did you transition from? You've told me this story before, but how did you transition from the military to Walmart?
And why?
Well, yeah. Well, I was a captain in the Army up at Fort Drum, New York. It probably snowed 3 feet that day, and I looked at my life and decided I think I'll try to get out. They had this thing called the Junior Military Officer Program back then, so I signed up, and within a couple of weeks, I had a bunch of interviews with companies, and I didn't have a commitment to the service. I had volunteered as a reservist and was in for about 7 years, and then decided to get out. So it was pretty easy for me to step out. But I interviewed with a mess of companies, came down to Bentonville and interviewed with this company whose owner drove a pickup truck, and they lived in a small town, and that really appealed to me. So I ended up coming to Walmart. We didn't even have Walmarts up in the Northeast back then. So I had to go visit a store to see what they were like. We had Kmart's and some of the other things, but I just really appreciated the town of Bentonville and really appreciated the leadership of Walmart and joined them.
And you went right to, you started in the private fleet, right?
I was actually a management trainee in the private fleet. I was working in a quality assurance area here, and they called it the home office, but it was really a kind of a trailer park over by the dispatch office back then.
Yeah.
Was that day one? Was that day one? What was day one like?
Well, day one, actually, I was called and told to stay home because they just did a renewal, they called it, where they eliminated my job. So, so I hadn't even got a position yet, and they had gone through one of those belt tightening things. So I waited a couple of weeks, and my supervisor back then said, "Don't worry, we'll find something." And they ended up bringing me back to about the same position. It was called something different, but I ended up coming in anyway, and I worked. Basically, back then there weren't any policies or procedures in a lot of areas in the transportation group or distribution centers were just getting theirs up and going. So I was writing procedures, meeting with people, and trying to figure out what was going on, and so we could document it and start training a lot more people, because back then we had I think there were 9 distribution centers. Wow. And they said back then we're going to have at least 20, and I'm not sure how many they have these days, but we so we were working feverishly to document everything and get some procedures in place, and so we were doing some things more consistently. But that's where I started, and then ended up moving through the truck fleet. Ended up being the director of the fleet after about, I guess, 6 years. Yeah.
Well, that's crazy. That's where I first met you, was a random meeting, as I had to go over and meet with Larry, and I think he called you into a meeting, and we were trying to develop a relationship with the private fleet and direct import transportation, and I think that's the first place I met you, probably 97, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, that would have been. Yeah, because I joined in 1990. So
yeah,
okay, 1990. Yeah, it was early on, and we were figuring things out for sure. And as you know, Kevin, over on the other side of the business.
So Tim's the private fleet. I want to talk a little bit about that. That has always been considered a huge competitive advantage when you think about supply chain, and when you talk about Walmart and Walmart private fleet. Why do you think that it became such, and it is such, a competitive advantage today?
Well, I think it goes back to the beginning when Sam couldn't get product moved direct from a supplier to a distribution center or a store. It had to go through basically an LTL network, and so it took too long. And that's when Sam started buying his own trucks, and they were able then to pull direct from supplier to store. And as that expanded, it ended up being, supplier to distribution centers, and then the distribution centers were ramped up and sophisticated, and the fleet stayed with it. And I think what they evolved into, frankly, was a competitive advantage from a service standpoint, response standpoint, flexibility standpoint, and certainly the added benefit of being able to help communities during emergencies. I wouldn't basically give that well, you're gonna have to edit this out, Kevin.
That's all right, man.
But I wouldn't undersell the value of the emergency response that the fleet was able to give to communities like New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina. And
I was hoping you'd talk about that. Yeah, tell us your memory of that event and the role that the fleet played into.
Well, by that time, we had responded, of course, to a lot of emergencies. We had, tornadoes, hurricanes, situations in Florida and some other places. So we had some smaller responses. So we were getting pretty efficient at it. In fact, we had designed some emergency relief trailers that we could go down and command and control from when we service places like that. But the timing was good on those expansions of the fleet, because when Katrina hit, we were lined up with, oh gosh, I can remember the picture of probably 100 trucks lined up with water and emergency supplies, just waiting outside New Orleans for the police to release us so we could move in. And all those drivers volunteered to do it. And everyone was responsive and supportive of that. It was just something to make you real proud. And of course, our customers sure appreciated it.
So you started at Walmart in 1990, you said, right?
Yes.
What year did you leave?
2016.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So, wow. So 26 years, what would you, during that time, what achievement are you most proud of?
Oh gosh, that's hard to say, Kevin. That's, there were so many things that we did real well. I think the thing I look back on, with the most pride, I guess you'd say pride, is the ability to communicate with associates and develop leaders. I think, and this isn't on me as much as it is on Walmart itself, teaching you how to develop leaders and how to, and allowing you to do it, and also teaching you how to communicate and how to inform people. And I always like to tell leaders that, people come to work, you want them to be happy coming to work. You don't want them to dread it. And creating the right work environment was, in my mind, the number one priority of a leader, so that people enjoyed coming, enjoyed the people that they work with. They were contributing more than just buying and selling merchandise. In a lot of respects, they were serving their communities as well. And I think just that overall ability to deliver communications in a good culture to people that worked every day, worked really hard. I think that's probably it.
Yeah. And I will say that, having experienced Tim's leadership firsthand, and things not always, gone the best that they could, because I was young and probably a little bullish in certain regards, but Tim's ability to communicate across the organization, down in the organization, and up in the organization was phenomenal, and something that, I always aspired to try to do, because Tim always encouraged us. He didn't encourage us, but he taught us how to communicate across the organization the right way, and still could not do it to the level that Tim could. So, Tim's ability to do that was unsurpassed, in my opinion, from anybody that I ever worked for inside of the organization.
Here. Yeah.
Well, Kevin, thanks, but that came through pain. Believe me, how to do that. I know. I learned some lessons early on. I'll tell you a couple of them, Kevin.
Yes, please.
I think the first, when I was in the military, I was young, and I think I was 28, 29 coming out of the military as a captain. And I think I thought that I had earned the right to lead. I'd earned the right to be listened to and respected. And boy, was I wrong. And that's the thing that I learned early on, and tried to teach other leaders as we went on, is that, what you did yesterday doesn't matter to the people that are working for you, or your customer for that matter. And every day was an opportunity to learn and grow. And I remember my first training session with Walmart. I finally got to my position there at Walmart in 1990. And there was an operations manager named Bill Hudnall who was running the Bentonville dispatch, and I was put under his control for my orientation. And Bill gave me a schedule that, first he said, well, I want you to be a people greeter at the store for a couple of days. And then I want you to head to Plainview, Texas. And I want you to visit all the stores between here and there and the distribution centers. And I'm thinking, this guy just wants to get rid of me, and get back to work, which I understood. He was real busy. But when I went over to the store to be a people greeter, even though I was a captain coming out of the Army, that job scared me to death, because I had to stand at the door and greet everybody coming in and say, how can I help you? And I'd never been in a Walmart store before. And so, I got everything from where's the toilet paper to, what are you going to do about this product that doesn't work? And then I had to run around the store and figure out where everything was, how everything worked. And by the time I was done with those 2 days, I had a pretty good operating knowledge of the store. And I also understood what the associates experienced in the store day in, day out. So I went back and, talked to Bill Hudnall, and he asked me, he said, what'd you learn? I said, I learned everything. And he said, well, that's the point. He said, at Walmart, doesn't matter what you know and what you bring here. He says, you got to ask that question, how can I help you? And you got to listen, and then you got to learn, and then you got to follow up with those people. And that shows you care and that you want to learn and not just lead. And I'll never forget that lesson, because that was the epitome of servant leadership, is asking that question, how can I help you? It's not about telling people to do stuff. It's about, how can I help you do your job and do it better? And it's amazing what the associates would tell you, because it wasn't all about them. It was about how they could help customers, how they could lower prices, how we could stop silly stuff from going on. And I carried that with me my whole career, and watched people make that terrible mistake of trying to lead without asking that question first. That was a big lesson for me. I think the other one I'd share with you story was a coaching step I got a little later in my career. I was directing the fleet at the time, and stock price going down. Our profits weren't tracking sales the way they should. It was a tough time. I think it was 96, 97. It was a tough time for everybody. But I had responsibility for the truck drivers, and they were, back then, many of the long-term truck drivers, they had over $1 million in their profit sharing accounts, and it was getting hit by the stock price going down. And so they were very intense at the time too. But in any case, I was trying to do everything I could to help, and I was directing a lot of initiatives into the fleet to reduce costs. And the drivers had about enough, and called Lee Scott and everybody else up in Bentonville and told them I was trying to kill them. And anyway, Lee called me in, and he handed me a step 3 of coaching, which is the last one you get, Kevin, before you go out the door. And he told me, he said, aggressive leaders like you, we like you. He said, but you got to understand, 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still progress. And he looked me in the eye and he said, you need to keep your people with you. And boy, did I learn a lesson then. And I went back and we shut some things down, and we got the drivers in the room, and we talked to them and got their feedback on which ones we should go after. And then we went forward. And I believe from 97 on, we didn't have an issue with that going on. But those are the kind of things that taught me how to lead and listen. and work with people that I believe were very rewarding for me as I moved through Walmart.
Yeah, and you just continue to pass those on. I mean, go forward a little bit from 97 to 98 when you came over to direct imports, and we all of us that were currently in those roles had been under a different style of leadership and for a handful of years. And the lessons that we learned in a very short period of time through servant leadership, it wasn't being forced on us. It was just, It was Tim's leadership style, was amazing and set the course for the future. And a lot of great things that happened.
Yeah. So I remember that they were enjoyable years, but they were also a lot of hard work and a lot of focus we put in back then.
So Tim, thinking back, was there a decision that you wish you had handled differently, and what did it teach you?
Oh, I probably had a lot of those, Kevin. I'm trying to.
Does one stick out in your mind?
The ones that that kind of bother me, I guess, when I look back, were how I handled leaders. Maybe specifically leaders that had been in the company a long time and yet had not learned servant leadership, and they had lost their ability to lead their associates, and having to move them out of position or move them on from the company. It had to be done, but I think I could have done it with more respect and care than I did in some circumstances. That probably bothers me more than anything. I think, Kevin, I trusted a few third parties too much during my tenure.
Yeah, that's a whole nother episode there, Tim.
But that can happen. That can happen just as relationships maybe get a little too close and with those above you in the organization. So that's probably some decisions that I made there that I would have done differently.
Yeah.
But I think it comes down to any time that the rush of things around me caused me not to employ good servant leadership tactics. I regret that.
Or kind of along the same topic in a way, do you see, or what do you see as the most underrated skill that us in the logistics world leaders should have today?
Good question.
I don't think it's hard. I think humility to listen, courage in communications, diligence and follow-up. Those three, take care of your business. And I think the other one that I learned along the way from Lee Scott was how to develop others. Specifically, I always figured, well, it's kind of subjective and you can't really put any science to it, but really it is. Lee taught me that, look, developing people is about limiting the amount of time you compensate for a person. So if I got a leader who's working for me and I've got to read their stuff because they can't write real well or can't communicate real well, or I've got to come in and talk to their people after they're done talking to them because they hacked them off, that's me compensating for that leader.
Yeah.
Those are specific things that leader can know to develop. And, whether it's communications or it's technical skills or it's, it might even be, gee, I've got to explain to somebody up above who this person is. I shouldn't have to do that. That's compensating. And it's those specific things that I used to work with leaders on and say, well, here's where I compensate for you. And there's 2 or 3 of them. Mm-hmm. These are the ones you need to fix to stay here. and normally that was easy for them to grab a hold of and fix or develop. But then the next question is, well, what do I need to do to get to the next position? Well, you as a leader can envision where you would have to compensate for that individual if they had your job.
That's right. Yep.
And you can explain to them, these are the areas that someone would have to help you with if you got into this job or that job that was higher up from you. And that whole idea of compensating, that whole concept of compensating gives you a guide for developing people. It gives you something to talk specifically about, clearly about, and it's not just subjective. You're doing pretty good this year, but I think you need to do it again, that kind of stuff. It's real specific. And I think that's a skill that logistics leaders need.
Yeah, that is phenomenal advice, Tim. But what advice do you have for leaders? That's on the people side of it, and that's why I love your style of leadership, and why we knew that you would be, a great guest, because we weave that part of the industry into almost every episode. But
Mm-hmm.
what advice do you have for leaders balancing the operational demands with long-term strategy?
Yeah, that's I think what I learned is three things about that. I remember Kevin. I don't know if you remember Al Miles, the original CEO of Walmart.
I do.
He had retired before I got there, anyway.
Yeah.
But Al used to say, if you're standing on a rattlesnake, you don't need to be thinking about strategy. You need to kill the snake. And I think that's the first lesson is kill the snakes before you start chasing strategies. Especially if the company or the organization that you're in is struggling from an ROI standpoint or a profit standpoint. But I think beyond that, leadership of the running of the business and the strategic direction is like being handed the keys to a nice car. You're in charge of this nice car. Don't wreck it. On the straightaways, you want to run hard and fast. That's running your business. Most of us are great at that, and most of us can help those people that are working with us do that. But on the curves, slow down and use the brakes a little bit, because that's when you're changing your business and chasing strategies and new strategies. And along the way, respect those who own the car before you. Respect the mechanics. That's the doers of the business right now. Don't tromp all over them. Respect those doers, and then look at what you want to be when you grow up, if you will. But the key is, don't wreck the car. I've seen so many leaders come into the organization, come into a job, and they just wreck the car. They change everything too fast.
Yep.
They go around that curve and don't use brakes. They don't test properly. They just think that, well, they already know it all. They don't need to listen to the doers. And then they wreck the car, and then someone comes in and ends up cleaning up the pieces for them. So that's kind of how I look at the business, and in terms of running and changing it.
Great advice. Great answer. I love that. I know Higgins is chomping at the bits. He has props. He typically does not have props. Typically he's just drinking something, but he's got props today that I know he wants to incorporate into the episode. Higgins, it's all yours.
We've talked on a lot of episodes. We talked about people, and people have brought up, it's like, hey, Kevin, you had a smart book and you carried a smart book with you, and you knew, you had everything, and I still have it. And here's something, that is probably from Tim, it's a leader's principal responsibilities that to this day is in this book. And it's just a constant reminder to me, is Tim always had, he had written down in a lot of different places things that leaders had said that were impactful to him. And then he gifted those to a lot of us who were honored, who got to work with Tim. And so I still have it. I still have my smart book right here with all the leadership stuff in it. And
do you use
I go
it
through it all
That's
the time.
The question. You have it. Are you using it, Higgins?
Well,
you got to use it.
I am, I'm currently the CEO of one, and so yeah, I have to remind myself a lot. But yeah, Tim and I was I got to do a lot of really cool stuff in the time that Tim came into direct imports, and so Tim, you'll appreciate this. One of our guests a couple of weeks ago was David Kearney. And I don't know if you remember David, but he was a young college graduate who'd just gone to work for Mercantile HUD Distribution in 1998 when we selected HUD to open up the facility up in Suffolk, Virginia. Mm-hmm. And so we were kind of reminiscing on that. And I told Parkinson this story for the first time. I'm like, hey, Kevin, when he joined Walmart in 2002, you walk into all these beautiful buildings and these transload facilities and new import distribution centers. I said, when we opened up Suffolk, Virginia, it was a warehouse with one door and no concrete apron and a gravel parking lot. And I remember specifically, I briefed you on all the projects that we had, and we flew to Suffolk and went to that facility. And do you remember what you told me when we got to that facility? Because we weren't open yet. We were supposed to open in June. Do you remember what you told me?
Because if you don't, he does.
I don't remember.
I do. You looked at me and you kind of put your hand on my shoulder and you said, "You're never going to make it."
Well,
like I said, I do regret some of the way I treated people.
No. And I'm like, so you flew home and I had a meeting with Maersk and Mercantile and HUD Distribution. And I said, Tim just told me that we're never going to make it and we better make it. And by the skin of our teeth, we got the doors cut and the apron poured. And I showed pictures. I pulled up some pictures the other day of what that facility looked like. But fast forward just 2 years, honestly. And you and I went up for the groundbreaking of a brand new building. I don't know if you remember this.
I do. I remember the picture.
Yeah. So you and I flew into Norfolk and went to the groundbreaking of the new facility, and James City County was being open. And so, we took 6 months to get Suffolk opened up. And KP, I told you that after we got Suffolk opened up, Tim came up and he's like, okay, you need to do the same thing in the Pacific Northwest for apparel and footwear, but you got 6 weeks. And so we made it happen, but it was a lot of fun. But yeah, I'll never forget that. You're never going to make it.
There were a lot, that brings back memories of our strategy on a lot of things too, on what we're going to do next. Is we always, it became sophisticated, and we said, well, we're always going to test something before we put the money into it. And things like the Suffolk cross dock, and we had I think we rented a runway down in Statesboro, Georgia to stack trailers on for storage.
I've heard that story. Yes.
And those cheap processes that we went after, they proved the concept for us, and then we built. And now we got several million square foot in Statesboro, I'm sure, down in Georgia, and in the Suffolk facility and all. And that's how we did things back then. We didn't pour the money into it on the front end. We tested it, proved it, and then we spent the money.
Yeah, I mean, we built crossdocks in Statesboro on that runway by backing flatbed trailers together.
Yep. I remember that. Yeah. We were something else back then.
Well, listen, Tim, I know
if it makes you feel better, Kevin, I think Roland Ford told me I wasn't going to make it either when he saw that.
So. Well, we survived.
So Tim, do you have, all of us have traveled so much during our career, and, we all have these travel stories. Do you have any travel stories that you can share that you immediately think of fondly of, or I cannot believe that happened? Like I said, we all have these, so I'm sure you have some that you can share.
Oh, I don't know if I have any that I can share. You didn't put that on the list of questions.
I know, right? Well,
So,
inside of that, we always get to, our favorite place to eat. So of all the places that you've traveled, is what sticks out? Is it a place in Suffolk? Is there a Charleston? Is it the barbecue? Was it some dive
I
in
think
Baytown?
I always like to eat at the Round Table in Brookhaven, Mississippi. That was a
Oh,
great restaurant.
okay.
I do remember that. There were a lot of other restaurants that I would not put on the list.
Yeah.
That many people took me to, but when I began traveling internationally, I mostly ate power bars because I just never wanted to.
Yeah,
I
same.
didn't want to eat the wrong thing, get sick, and that would ruin the trip. And I couldn't
Yep.
get done what I needed to get done. So I just used to power bar it, if you will. And I think everybody knew that about me.
Yep.
I wasn't one for going out to dinner and wasting time and money and letting people go home and spend time with their families. So, but yeah, I remember the Round Table down in Brookhaven. That was a nice place. And there's places all over the U.S. that I've eaten.
Yeah. So listen, you mentioned family, so I want to get. So you've been almost 10 years since you I'll call it retired. What keeps you motivated today?
Oh, motivated. I really don't need much motivation. I am like I said, I still get up early. I don't sleep a lot. I still work hard. I love building stuff, so I'm always remodeling or landscaping or doing something
Yeah.
that keeps me busy, or I'm doing it for a neighbor or a friend, and or doing work at the church or somewhere else. So I'm always busy, trying to serve. That keeps me going. And it's I guess of course my wife and I've been married for 43 years now, and
Wow.
we've traveled
Congratulations.
and
Yeah.
done so many things together, and we enjoy that, and grandkids, and I'm carting them around like an Uber driver to soccer games and everything else. So it's fun, and busy. So I really don't need much more motivation. My Lord keeps me motivated every day. Um, I think one of your questions was what's the quotes that I hold on to that sticks with me, and one of them
Yeah.
was from a guy named Chris Larson. He's with Ligonier Ministries down in Florida, and he said trusting the Lord leads us away from trusting and serving ourselves. He must increase and I must decrease, which is a quote from John the Baptist, of course. But that quote sticks with me every day, and motivates me to get at it every day.
That's a great
That's
quote.
awesome.
Thanks for sharing that. Absolutely.
Your youngest daughter is a cinematographer, right?
Yes. My youngest daughter's a cinematographer. My oldest daughter is teaching school. So, so they're busy, and I keep up with them and travel to see them. My mom and dad are actually, they're both 92 living up in New York. So I spend some time up there too. And, they're living in the same house, and he's shoveling snow and doing the garden and everything else, and driving to Walmart. So, God bless them. They have been phenomenal.
That's crazy.
But it does kind of scare you into saying, "Gee, I'm going to live beyond 90. That's a long time.
That's right.
I better get busy.
You got to get with it, man.
I got to get another career going or something."
Well,
that's
a great
on the
segue.
question.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Yeah. So if you had not gone into logistics, Tim, what career path do you think you might have chosen, or what would you do now? Knowing what you know in logistics.
I don't know. I love logistics. I love supply chain. That would be fun. Construction's good too. I like building stuff. Like I said, everything from the electrical and plumbing, and I play around with all that stuff. So I enjoy that.
Yeah.
But no, I'm the main thing is leadership, and I shy away from teaching and yakking about leadership. To me, it's more about showing it and doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to teach somebody who doesn't see you doing it, basically.
Yeah. That's a great point. I was about to ask you, like, when are you going to write a book about leadership?
Well, I wrote that draft. I think I gave it to everybody before I left. But no, I thought about that, but I just, again, I think it's more powerful when you see it than when you read about it.
Yeah. 100%. Are you playing any guitar?
No, I haven't picked up a guitar in years. Probably been 15 years for me.
Oh my gosh. Well, I keep mine close, but I don't play it. I just look at it like, it's
no, probably my fingers are soft. I have to harden them up.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, I got a couple of things. Like, one of the lessons, you gave me some advice one time, and I want to get your opinion on this. When I was transitioning from my global transportation role over to the private fleet, for the grocery private fleet, and I'm going to paraphrase and probably get a lot of it wrong, but you gave me some advice. Is like, don't let them tell you that you have to do it the way that it's always been done. And that stuck with me. And it was different when I went in. It was, when I went in and did things differently than the RTMs were generally used to doing, it was different for them, and they didn't get accustomed to it for a long time. But a lot of that was what you said to me was, don't think that you got to get on a plane on Monday afternoon and come home on a Friday morning to be the best in that role. And, and so it opened my eyes to, and having spent a few years with you, working with you, that was a huge thing for me. And it allowed me to go in and really take a different view of that business. And ultimately it worked out because, I had 5 offices in the top 10 when I left Walmart in 2005. So it seemed to work. But what would you say about that for somebody who's coming into a new role and it's a historically established role that they're about to take?
Yeah, I again, I learned this from Lee Scott, is that, be where you have to be where you need to be. Don't try to spread yourself around too thin. I remember when I moved to imports, I was in the private fleet and moved over to import operations. Nobody knew me over there. Everybody wondered, who is this guy? What's he doing over here? And I'll never forget the first day in the department. Lee Scott wandered into the department, and he hadn't been in that department for, I think, over a year. But he walked through the department down to my desk and welcomed me to imports. And I know he did that so everybody saw him do that, to kind of validate that, hey, this guy isn't here for 3 days. He's here to help you guys, and he's here, and I'm supporting him. And I'll never forget that. And he had a million things to do. I'm sure he was, at that point, he was CEO of the company, I guess. But he walked down just to welcome me. And I was a director. I was going in as director of the fleet, or director of imports. And I think that was a lesson for me, Kevin, in that, be where you need to be to have the greatest impact. But don't necessarily be everywhere. Mm-hmm. And, I remember another time where Lee got an open door call from several of the mechanics down in Lawrence, South Carolina. And I was running the fleet at the time, so I had responsibility for those mechanics. And he called me up and said, hey, we're getting on a plane tomorrow. I'm going to Lawrence, South Carolina. And I was like, oh no, because back then we didn't have jets; they were prop planes. So, I'm on the plane for 6 hours with Lee, and I thought, oh no. So, but he did. He flew down there. He talked to these 5 guys in the Lawrence, South Carolina shop, calmed them down, told them to do what I said, and basically said everything will be okay. Mm-hmm. And we went back, and of course, Lee chewed me out on the way back and told me that he never wanted that to happen again. But the point was, he was showing me that that's what I should have done: get on a plane and go to Lawrence and talk to those 5 guys. and he showed me how important it is and how to be aware of, hey, this is a place you need to be, so go. And don't underestimate, what you're hearing from this location or that location. So again, it's all about, discerning, where do I need to be today? Where will I have the greatest impact? Make sure your schedule doesn't get filled up and you're able to do it. And I think that's it, Kevin.
Yeah. Well, it was impactful advice to me, and I know it, will be to everybody else as well.
So Tim, we have to talk about AI, or I'd love to get your take on AI. You champion visibility and data-driven decisions during your career. Looking at today, digitization, AI, robotics, what excites you most, even in your retirement?
Wow. Yeah. That I read those and I thought, wow, haven't had a lot of experience with AI other than my insurance company and some of the other folks using it these days. But as I think about AI, I think about sustainability, and how transformational that was when it came at us. Kind of see AI the same. From retirement, I view AI with skepticism. I think because I don't know a lot of the doer level impacts. I don't know how it's being managed, how it's being discerned, if you will. But it's the same skepticism I had for things like RFID tech. I remember when that was coming at everybody, and that was going to be the cure all for everything. And it reminds me a little of sustainability. I used to describe the sustainability initiative, to truck drivers in three ways. And by the way, sustainability is a big word that no one knew what we were talking about most of the time when we said that word.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like AI. But as I talked to truck drivers about sustainability, I said, just think of it this way. I said, first, we stop the dumb stuff. I'd remind them of how our mom and dad used to smack us upside the head and tell us to turn the light off or shorten that shower, or, don't use so much paper towel, or seal the doors and windows, that kind of stuff. That's the dumb stuff. And we got after that and showed a bunch of cost savings. And when you expand that to a chain the size of Walmart, it was huge savings. I mean, we were figuring out how to keep the refrigerator doors closed in the stores, for example, and use more efficient refrigeration and plug the holes in the stores and in the around the doors and all that kind of stuff. A lot of money there. So that was the first thing I talked to the drivers about, and say, that's where, keep driving your trucks as efficiently as you can. Keep looking at saving and supply costs in the offices. Recycle was one of those dumb things we hadn't been doing efficiently. Mm-hmm. But second thing we do is we choose a few key initiatives to test. And, from a sustainability standpoint, it was, liquid natural gas engines, solar, wind, hydrogen cell, electric trucks, those kind of things. And we test them, and limited tests, but we were looking for how we could get a good return from them and help the environment. Mm. And third, we'd roll out only the proven technologies, and not roll out everything. And if it made sense for the business, provided a return without a government subsidy on it, then yeah, let's go and roll it out. So we spent a lot of time in section 1, stopping the dumb, a lot of time in section 2, and then we'd roll out very specific initiatives in 3. And I kind of see AI that way. I hope the leaders are looking at it in a way that makes sense. The easy wins, plug it in, stop the dumb stuff, save the easy money, choose a few key strategies to test, and then roll out only the proven stuff. Because I think pushing it too fast, first of all, will tank your P&L, because you'll be doing rework. And second, you might get into an ethical issue or a service issue if you go too fast. So I could kind of see that, those two initiatives the same. I think eventually, it'll settle and AI will continue to deliver more data and improve the transformation of companies as we go. Yeah. Certainly we learned through the years at Walmart that a gut feel earns you only a test. It doesn't earn you a rollout. Unfortunately, we had leaders who they'd had a gut feel and they'd roll out, and they would mess a lot of things up that way and add a lot of cost.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we listen to the data to earn the test, and then listen again to the data after the test before we roll.
Gosh, such good advice.
This is so good.
It's like a master class right there.
It is, Higgins. It's a master class, but it resonates, and it's, it's consistent with my recollection and, my memory of your philosophy and your style and your overall just approach. You and I, Tim, we didn't work. Yeah. I never reported directly in your department, but we worked very closely, in the import program. And I've heard some of these anecdotes and these ways of thinking before, and it still resonates today. And that was, over a decade ago, if not more.
And it had to evolve in Walmart as we moved too, because, Sam liked to talk about do it, try it, fix it in the stores and clubs. And that was empowering the associates to try things and see if they worked and do them. And when you have a store doing that, it's one thing. But when you get smart people up at the headquarters doing that with the chain, it's a whole nother story.
Yeah. Right.
And because you can't do it, try it, fix it with a chain. You have to do those tests, but yet you can empower people in the stores to do it, try it, fix it. And in the individual dispatch offices or distribution centers, certainly, but don't be messing with the chain that way. And that was the transition to data that meant so much to the company is look at the data before you test and then after.
So that's good.
Yeah,
you got to write a book, Tim. You got to write it down. We'll record it on the podcast. We can transcribe it, but you got to write it down. Well, listen, we're coming up on the end of our time, but I always want to, promote. We like to promote and talk about Northwest Arkansas. We're here in Northwest Arkansas. We know it's a special place. We know it's an up and coming. It is a supply chain hub, but what do you love about Northwest Arkansas? You've been here for how many years?
I don't even remember. I guess since 90. So 35 years.
Yeah.
Long time. I love the place. I still remember my first year. No, my first couple of weeks, I called my wife, who was still up at Fort Drum, New York, where we got out. I said, "You're not gonna believe this place, but I'm at a county fair and they have a frog jumping contest going on." It was, and a mule jumping contest too. And
they still do that. Yes.
Yeah, they still do that.
This past weekend.
Yes.
But I remember that, and I said, this is gonna be a neat place to raise your kids and to have a great life down here. And boy, we were right about that, and it still is, and it's just getting better and better with all the amenities they have around here.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I've been here just about the same amount of time, and lots of changes. I raised two girls, raised a family here, and I've traveled all over the world like you have, and this is a special place. It's changed a lot, but it's still got that feel, that hometown feel for me. And I love sharing our experience here and highlighting this area. I'm okay with more people moving here. I don't like the traffic. I complain about that all the time, but I don't want to gatekeep it. I want to share it, and I want people to know that this is a special place. And it's not just Walmart and Tyson and JB Hunt and those leading industries. They've done a phenomenal job of helping support this area, but it's just a great place.
It is.
Sure is. Great place to be involved in the community too.
Yeah, 100%. Well, KP and Tim, before we let Tim go, I do have to ask Tim if you asked him about favorite, places to travel or memories or something like that. We'll see if this jogs his memory. When he came into direct imports, we were going to go out to the facility in Southgate, California, which is, you've been there, KP, you know what it's like,
yes.
right? So we're going to Southgate, California. And so I'd been with the company for over 4 years at the time, and we always stayed at the same place when we went out there. We stayed at the Hyatt because it was safe. And when Tim came in, he books our trip and he lets Walmart Travel book our hotel. And he's kind of smiling like he might remember, but we pulled into the hotel and they had to open the gates and let us in. It's not a gated community type of hotel. They had to open the gates and then they locked the gates behind us. And then at night, people started kind of gathering out on the corner, if you get my drift. And I just remember Tim, he's like, don't ever let me do that again. So he's like, you can make our travel arrangements from now on.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I've stayed in some places in Memphis and some other places just like that. So yeah, I remember that. I remember, I certainly remember a lot of that.
It was a good time. It was a great time of my life. I'll never forget it.
I remembered my travel story. I did remember my travel story. I know we don't have time, but I'll just tell you guys anyway.
Yeah.
It was when Mike Duke called me and said he wanted me to go to China and talk at this conference, FedEx conference. He couldn't make it, so he asked me to go. And I said, okay, where is it? And it was in the far west side of the Guangdong province. Mm-hmm. If you remember that, Kevin. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it was 40 hours to get there. And then, it was get on the ferry, get in the taxi cab, et cetera, after getting to Hong Kong and back into China. And I remember going to this place and we pulled in a military compound, Chinese military compound, guards, guns all over the place. And they escorted me to a room. I thought I was going to prison. And and it was just this little room with a bed. And in the morning I got up and was escorted over to this conference center, did my spiel and got out of there 40 hours back, with a little state dinner in the middle of it where I don't even remember who was there from the Chinese government, but governors and these other guys that I was sitting next to, and they were serving, I think it was grubs, some kind of grubs that I didn't eat. But then I got up and 40 hours back to Bentonville. That was my worst trip ever.
Oh, wow.
I thank Mike Duke for that experience.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. That's a good travel story. Okay.
That's a great travel
story.
There
you go. I had one.
Yeah. I'm sure you have more.
Oh, he's got plenty. He's got plenty. Trust me.
Well, listen, Tim, one other thing I wanted to mention, first of all, thanks for your service. We've got Veterans Day coming up in a couple of weeks, actually, in November. How do you typically spend Veterans Day? What do you do? How do you observe that day?
Well, I used to take my grandsons down to the Fayetteville Park. Steve Womack and some others would speak and do some other things. Mm-hmm. I haven't done that the last few years as they become teenagers and wandered off. But
sure.
So no, we'll spend it at home this year.
Well, good. Well, again, thanks for your service. We want to make sure that we acknowledge that, and that's a big sacrifice, for you, your family, and as well. So thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to talk to you, man. It's good to see you. And KP and I have talked about this a long time, and I just like, no, I'm just going to email him and see if he'll come on and do it and spend some time with us. But we need to get together, break some bread, have some lunch up there sometime.
Sure, anytime.
Well, I've
got an open schedule.
Right on.
Well, this has been great. We really appreciate your time, Tim. You sharing your insights, just your leadership style, the utmost respect for you and what you've done in your career. But thanks for taking the time to visit with us and our audience.
You're welcome. There's a lot of legends out there for you guys to go after. So I encourage you to go talk to the Mike Brights and the Jeff Burns and the others that have led with us along the way.
Absolutely. Those are great.
We intend to. So appreciate you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
All right. Goodbye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Kev Talks, Real World Global Logistics. If today's discussion inspired you, don't forget to follow, subscribe, rate, and share our podcast.
Remember, every great journey in logistics starts with a single step forward. Let's continue working together to transform the industry.